the time between putting pen on paper for the first sketch and having a production piece in hand can take up to a year, I don't believe comparing launching a microbrand watch to a game of Battleship is too far-fetched. Truth is, many resources have to be committed to what amounts to pretty much a shot in the dark. That's why many microbrand designs reside on the boring side of safe, inviting discussions about a perceived lack of originality. Fortunately though, some designers just decide to ignore the memo and fully unleash their creativity. Kevin, the owner of the Malaysian microbrand Revelot, is one of them, and the aptly named Admiral is his fleet's flagship and the subject of today's review. As the design is Admiral's strong suit, the section of the review dedicated to it is going to take a while. Starting off with the case, the samurai vibe is impossible to ignore, but this is where memory is bound to show its limitations. Luckily, I do have a samurai to compare the Admiral to, and this shows the Revelot is far from being even an homage to the Seiko legend. The lugs are longer, the angles are even sharper, the aggression is turned up to 11. It takes a truly bold design to make the samurai look domestic, but Revelot have just pulled it off. As a result of the aggressive beveling of the lugs, the Admiral's design could and should be considered a cushion case, and the slightly recessed bezel only serves to reinforce this observation. As the dial sports a deep rehaut, the center of gravity had to be shifted towards the bottom of the case, making room for the NH34 caliber through a rather prominent solid caseback. Despite that, the watch is still remarkably thin, and as you will see in the section dedicated to wearability, it wears pretty close to the skin. The partially exposed screw-down crown sits proud at 4 o'clock, and its texture is replicated on the classic diver bezel. The bracelets design is original and consistent to the utilitarian vibe of the watch. The dial is meant to replicate a shoreline as seen through a radar screen. As a consequence, it is quite unique and requires a slightly longer glance to read the time. As an interesting side note, I have found out that depending on the focal length, the protruding cardinal markers will form a 4-leaf clover against the indented dial, so Irish customers might have an extra incentive to buy the Admiral. I really am amazed at Revelot's ability to create so much depth in an NH-powered 200 meters diver. The deep rehaut is tall enough for the 24-hour numerals to be legible at arm's length, and the contrast between the lumed 5-minute markers and the base of the dial is perfectly enhanced through the guillocheed maelstrom. This is definitely the first negative sandwich dial I've ever seen. Well done, Kevin. The minute and hour hands are also uniquely specific to the theme of the watch, as they resemble the shape of sleek warships seen from an F-16 up in the clouds. The GMT hand is quite generic, but I like the attention to detail manifested through color matching its tip with the other accents on the bezel and the typography under the pinion. To resume, this is a fascinatingly inventive and coherent way of giving character to a watch that will be cherished both by grown-ups and kids. And I know a couple of kids in the Roll of Aren's vein that have definitely enjoyed watching this segment. Max, Joop, greetings from Romania. I find it fascinating how some brands go out of their way to making up excuses for half-assed jobs. I'm talking here about brands that have used unconventionally colored lume to poor results and then blamed it on the quality of the compound rather than assuming responsibility for the result. Well, Revelot are here showing how it should be done. No mention on the provenience of the orange lume compound, but it's strong and long-lasting, greatly complementing the C3 used throughout. The other materials used have become standard for microbrands, but shouldn't be taken for granted, as 316L stainless steel, ceramic bezel insert, and AR-coated sapphire crystal are still considered premiums by some of the big brands out there. Same big brands I alluded to earlier would intentionally blur the line between utilitarian and sloppy, trying to cover poor manufacturing and quality control. It only takes looking at the Admiral to realize wear and tear should be consequences of wearing the watch, things that give it a unique character rather than stuff you get fresh out of the box. This watch feels as solid as it looks, and its finish might not wow anyone, but is consistent. Perfect crown action, perfect bezel action, no backplay or misalignments, and no sharp edges. Solid, earnest stuff. I don't believe the NH34 needs too much of an introduction, but a simple presentation. This is a collar GMT caliber, which means it will have a quick set position for the GMT hand in order to track a remote secondary time zone with the help of the 24-hour markers on the rehaut. It hacks, it handwinds, and it does pretty much everything its NH35 sibling does. Of course, this is not a versatile watch, and its design shouts its tooly nature from the rooftops. Of course, every tool watch has to wear comfortably, and on my 19cm wrist, the Admiral does just that. Despite a rather large length, getting a perfect fit is made possible by fiddling with the 5 positions on the fly micro adjustment system the buckle is fitted with. Omitting to apply lume on the 24-hour markers is a pet peeve of mine, fed by many watchmakers, and will impact reading the secondary time zone in darkness. To a less severe degree, accurate time telling is also impacted due to the lack of minute markers. One of the most prolific microbrands of the past few years, Revelot have built a solid reputation for a customer-oriented approach. Every client is important, and Kevin is known to go the extra mile when it comes to customer satisfaction. The website is well structured, and relevant information is always placed on the first page. As for the packaging, returning customers will be met by the familiar disposable cardboard box, a sacrifice many of us are willing to make for the fantastic prices of the Revelot watches. So, is this a watch to ignore, consider, shortlist, or buy? Well, no fluff about it, buy. And that's because the second batch of the Admiral will launch in 20 minutes, so after finishing watching this review, you'll still have time to head down to the website by accessing the link in the description of this video and check this and the other colorways. Why is it important to heed my advice? Well, as if the price is starting at $336 for this color variant on a silicone strap weren't low enough, Revelot are also offering early bird discounts of up to 25% for limited quantities of each colorway. So yeah, having clicked the bell icon for notifications in addition to having subscribed to the channel pays off now, as you get a competitive advantage over the casual viewers who, of course, are invited to subscribe in order to avoid this horrible feeling of missing out you're experiencing right now. Alternatively, you can watch my review of another GMT diver here, or click here to see other recommendations for extremely affordable divers. And stay tuned for some fantastic watches I'm lining up for future reviews, as I'm pretty sure one of them will be the watch you want.